I woke up to my own daughter's voice on the phone saying, "If Mom gets confused again today, we can finally sign everything." It was 5:12 a.m., and the house was still dark, just that thin, bluish pre-dawn light slipping through my kitchen blinds like it didn't want to be seen. The coffee maker clicked on with its usual tired little groan, and the whole place smelled like yesterday's rain and old pine boards. My late husband, Frank, used to say this farmhouse had a heartbeat. Some mornings, I swear, it still does. I stood there barefoot on cold tile, holding my phone so tight my knuckles went white. The screen showed the call was still connected. My daughter, Melissa, didn't hang up. She didn't know I'd answered. She thought I was the kind of old lady who fumbles with buttons and forgets how to swipe. 70 years old. And apparently I'd become a problem they were scheduling like a dentist appointment. "Just act normal, my son," Ryan murmured in the background. I could hear the lazy clink of a spoon against a mug, like this was casual, like they were discussing the weather. "We tell the doctor she's forgetting stuff. We tell the county she's a fall risk. Then it's done." Melissa sighed. "I feel bad, okay? But this place is worth a fortune now. We can't just wait around for her to die." There it was. Clean. Simple. The truth always is. My throat tightened, but I didn't cry. Not because I'm tough, because crying would have been a waste of water. I'd already spent years watering everybody else's life, watching my own roots dry out. I set the phone down on the counter, still connected, and slowly exhaled. The kettle started to hiss. A neighbor's rooster crowed once, like it was laughing. Then Melissa said the line that made my stomach go cold. "And don't forget, today's the day we push the memory test angle, the social workers coming at noon." My hand drifted to the little bruise on my wrist from last week. Not from a fall. From Ryan's grip when I refused to just sign something he slid across my table like a waitress delivering a bill. He'd squeezed too hard, then acted like I'd imagined it. Old people imagining things is a convenient story. I ended the call without a sound, like I'd never been there. Like I was the ghost they already treated me like. Then I opened the drawer where I keep my bills and coupons and the tiny envelope Frank left behind the day he died. It had my name on it in his handwriting, steady, neat, stubborn. The same handwriting that used to fill out every check and every school permission slip for our kids. Elena. "If anyone ever tries to take the land, read this first." I'd read it once, years ago, right after the funeral, when my hands were shaking so bad I could barely hold paper. Back then, I'd shoved it away because I couldn't handle one more what if. But this wasn't a what if anymore. This was happening. Today. I slid the envelope out and stared at it like it might bite. Outside, the wind pushed through the cornfield and made that soft rushing sound, like the land was whispering. This farm has been in Frank's family for generations. I taught 5th grade for 32 years to help keep it afloat. I graded papers at this very counter. I packed lunches. I hosted Thanksgiving. I survived. I earned this soil, and now my own kids were planning to ship me off somewhere with beige walls and bingo night, just so they could cash out my life like a lottery ticket. I poured coffee and sat at the table where my kids used to fight over pancakes. The same table where Ryan once promised me, at 12 years old, that he'd never leave me lonely. The memories came at me hard, but I didn't let them drown me. I let them sharpen me. Because here's the thing, nobody tells your children about turning 70. You stop being scared of losing people who already decided to lose you. I opened Frank's envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper, a key taped to the bottom, and one sentence that made my heartbeat finally slow down instead of race. "They can't sell it without your voice unless you give them yours." I stared at the key. Brass. Old. Heavy. The kind of key that belongs to a lock somebody forgot existed. At exactly 6:03 a.m., my phone buzzed with a cheerful text from Melissa. Morning, Mom. Don't forget big day. We're coming to help you. I smiled into my coffee. Yeah, sweetheart, it sure is. And if my kids wanted to test whether I was confused, I was about to give them the performance of their lives. Because at noon, when that social worker walked through my door, she wasn't just evaluating me. She was about to meet the one person on this farm who already knew where the real paperwork was buried. By the time the sun finally pushed its way over the cornfields, I'd already decided something important. I wasn't going to fight them head on. Not yet. People think strength looks loud. Raised voices. Slammed doors. Lawyers on speed dial. But real strength? Real strength knows when to stay quiet and let other people walk straight into their own mess. I rinsed my coffee mug and set it upside down like always. Muscle memory. 32 years of teaching trained my hands better than any doctor ever could. Funny how nobody questions your mind when you're helping their kids with homework, but the minute you stop being useful, suddenly you're declining. At Delapan Tudain RT, my phone rang again. Melissa. I let it ring 3 times, just enough to seem slow. Hello? I said, soft, careful, a little shaky, like my voice needed help standing up. Oh, thank God, she said. Mom, we were worried. You didn't answer earlier. I glanced at the calendar on the fridge, today's date circled in red. Social worker, 12 p.m. I pretended to squint at it. Earlier? I asked. Did you call earlier? There it was. The pause. That tiny, satisfied silence on the other end of the line. Yeah, Melissa said gently, like she was talking to a toddler. But it's okay. These things happen. Oh-hoo. And the trap snapped just a little tighter. Ryan's voice jumped in, louder, more forced. Hey, Mom. Just checking in. You okay today? I'm fine, I said. Just tired. Didn't sleep great. Perfect. Tired equals fragile. Fragile equals paperwork. Well, Ryan said, that's actually why we're coming by. To help. You know we worry. I bit the inside of my cheek so hard it almost hurt. Of course you do, I said. You've always been such good kids. Melissa laughed. A light, relieved sound. See? You're sharp as ever. No, sweetheart. I'm just letting you think you're winning. After we hung up, I went upstairs and stood in front of the hallway mirror. The one Frank installed, because he said the old one made the house look like it was leaning. I looked at my face, wrinkles, sure. Silver hair pulled back loose. Eyes that had seen too much to be fooled by a clipboard and a smile. I practiced losing my train of thought. I practiced saying, what was I saying again? I practiced smiling when I shouldn't. By 10 a.m., I'd taken out Frank's envelope again. I didn't open it this time. I already knew what was inside. What mattered was the key, heavy, old, honest. I slipped it into the pocket of my cardigan, right next to my chest, somewhere safe, somewhere they wouldn't think to look. At 11:45, Melissa's SUV crunched up the gravel driveway like it owned the place already. Ryan followed behind in his shiny black sedan, the kind of car that screams, I'm doing well, but never quite says how. I watched from the kitchen window as they got out. Melissa adjusted her sunglasses. Ryan checked his phone. Neither of them looked at the fields, or the barn, or the land Frank bled for. They didn't see a home. They saw a payout. The social worker arrived right on time. Clipboard tucked under her arm. Kind eyes. The dangerous kind. The kind that assume the best and therefore miss the worst. Mrs. Carter? She asked when she stepped inside. I hesitated. Just a beat too long. Yes, I said finally. That's me. Melissa shot Ryan a look. Score 1 for the performance. We all sat at the dining table. The same table where spelling tests were signed and birthday candles were blown out. The social worker asked her questions. Names, dates, simple stuff. I missed one on purpose. What year did Frank pass? She asked gently. I looked down at my hands. 2012? Frank died in 2015. Ryan leaned forward. See? That's what we were telling you about. The social worker nodded, scribbling something. I felt it then, not fear. Anger, cold, clean, focused, because they thought they were watching me fail. They didn't realize I was counting every word they said, every lie they leaned on, every step closer they took to the edge. And when the social worker finally asked the one question they weren't prepared for, "Do you feel safe with your children?" I almost smiled. The room went quiet after that question. Do you feel safe with your children? It wasn't dramatic. No music cue, no thunder outside, just the low hum of the refrigerator and the faint tick of the clock Frank hung crooked because he said perfection was overrated. Melissa's smile froze. Not cracked, just paused. Ryan shifted in his chair like the cushions suddenly grew teeth. And me? I stared at the social worker like I hadn't heard her right. Safe? I repeated, soft. With my children? She nodded, calm, professional. Some seniors feel pressured, or rushed, or confused by decisions being made for them. Pressured, rushed, confused. 3 words they'd been sewing onto me for months. I rubbed my palms together, slow and nervous-looking. They mean well, I said. They always have. Melissa exhaled, relief spilling out of her like air from a balloon. She reached over and squeezed my hand, just a little too tight. We're just trying to help Mom, she said. She's had some episodes. Episodes. That word again. The social worker turned back to me. Can you tell me about one of those episodes, Mrs. Carter? I opened my mouth, closed it, looked at the ceiling like the answer might be hiding in the cracks. Well, I said, last week I thought I paid the electric bill, but then Ryan said I didn't. Ryan nodded quickly. She forgot, yeah. He tilted my head. Did I forget? I asked him. He blinked. Just once. Yeah, Mom. You did. I smiled, small and apologetic. Then I must have. The social worker wrote something down. What she didn't see was the envelope copy tucked inside my recipe book upstairs, or the bank statement Frank taught me to read like it was a test paper, or the fact that the electric bill had been paid 2 days early, actually. I let that one go, because this wasn't the moment to win. This was the moment to let them talk. The social worker asked about my daily routine, my medications, whether I cooked, whether I drove, whether I fell. Melissa jumped in every time, filling gaps I hadn't even left. She forgets to eat sometimes. She repeats stories. She almost tripped near the barn last month. I watched her like I used to watch my students during pop quizzes. The ones who talked too much always told on themselves. Ryan stayed quieter. He avoided my eyes. That bothered me more than Melissa's confidence. Guilt has weight. It drags your gaze down. Mrs. Carter, the social worker said, do you ever feel like your children are making decisions without you? I laughed. A soft, embarrassed chuckle. Oh, honey, they're busy. They have lives. I don't want to be a burden. There it was. The word every parent swears they'll never feel, until someone hands it to them and says, wear this. Melissa squeezed my hand again. You're not a burden, Mom. Her nails dug into my skin. I nodded. I know. Another lie slid neatly into place. The social worker closed her folder after an hour. Thank you all. I'll submit my report and follow up soon. Follow up. That's where things would get interesting. After she left, the house felt heavier, like the walls were listening harder than usual. Ryan stood by the window. Melissa paced. Well, Melissa said, forcing cheer. That went pretty smooth. I looked at her. Did it? She paused. I mean, yeah. She seemed concerned. Concerned. Good. Ryan finally spoke. Mom, we think it might be time to consider options. Just in case. Options. I folded my hands in my lap like a student waiting for grades. What kind of options? Melissa's voice softened. Assisted living. Temporary. Just until we sort things out. Sort things out meant sell the land. I nodded slowly. If that's what you think is best. Ryan flinched. Really? Melissa said. You're okay with that? I looked around the room. The table. The walls. Frank's clock. I'm tired, I said. Maybe I don't see things clearly anymore. Silence. Then Melissa smiled. A real one this time. Good, she said. That makes this easier. They left an hour later, promising to handle everything. I watched their cars disappear down the driveway before I moved. Then I locked the door. My hands stopped shaking the second the deadbolt slid into place. I walked upstairs, opened the recipe book, and pulled out the photocopies Frank insisted we make just in case. Deeds. Trust documents. Signatures that didn't belong to them. I sat on the bed and laughed. Not loud, not happy. Just sharp. Because they thought today proved I was losing my mind. What it really proved was that they'd already shown me exactly how far they were willing to go. And tomorrow morning, when Melissa sent me the paperwork she was sure I'd sign, she had no idea the original documents were already somewhere she couldn't touch even if she tried. Melissa emailed the paperwork at 7:06 a.m., sharp. I know the exact time because I was already awake, sitting at the kitchen table with my glasses on and my coffee untouched. Sleep doesn't come easy when you realize your own children are timing your life like a business transaction. The subject line made me snort. Just some forms, Mom. Just some forms, was what she used to say when she needed a permission slip signed in elementary school. Field trips, vaccines, anything that needed my name at the bottom. Funny how life circles back like that. I opened the email slowly. Power of attorney, medical consent, temporary guardianship. Words dressed up to sound helpful. Reasonable kind, even. The kind of language that says we're doing this for you while quietly sliding the pen toward your future. I scrolled all the way down. There it was. Signature required. I closed the laptop. Not yet. At 9:30, my phone rang again. This time it was Ryan. He hadn't called first in years. That alone told me something had shifted. Hey, Mom, he said. His voice sounded tired, scraped thin. Did you get Melissa's email? I did, I said. And he waited. I let the silence stretch, just long enough to make him uncomfortable. I don't remember how to sign things online, I said finally. Relief flooded his voice. That's okay. We can come by later, or I can walk you through it. Maybe you should come by, I said. I don't trust myself with buttons. There it was again, that small, satisfied pause. Sure, he said. Yeah, I'll come after work. After we hung up, I stood up and walked out to the porch. The air smelled like dirt and cut grass. The fields rolled out in front of me, steady and patient. Land doesn't rush, it waits. It remembers. Frank used to say, people lie. Land doesn't. At noon, I drove into town. Yes, drove. I made sure the neighbor saw me pull out. Made sure the cashier at the hardware store remembered my face. Made sure someone, somewhere, could say later, no, that woman didn't seem confused at all. Then I went somewhere else. The bank. The young teller smiled too wide when I stepped up. How can I help you today, Mrs. Carter? I need to check on a safe deposit box, I said. She typed. Frowned. Typed again. I don't see one under your name. That's because it's under my husband's, I said. Frank Carter. She hesitated. He passed? 8 years ago, I said. But he was thorough. That made her smile fade just a bit. She called the manager. 10 minutes later, I was sitting in a small, quiet room with a metal box on the table. The same box Frank insisted on opening with me every 2 years, like a ritual, like practice. My hands didn't shake when I unlocked it. Inside were the originals, not copies, not scans. The deed, the trust, the clause they didn't know about. In the event of cognitive dispute, ownership remains with the original grantor unless evaluated by an independent trustee selected by the grantor. Independent. Trustee. Selected by me. I smiled. At 4:45 p.m., Ryan's car pulled into the driveway. I was already sitting at the table, laptop open, papers printed and stacked neatly. I made sure the font was big. The room smelled like fresh bread. Comfort is disarming. "Hey, Mom," he said, stepping inside. He looked around like he expected something to jump out at him. "I printed the forms," I said, "so I could see them better." He relaxed. "Good idea." He sat across from me, took out a pen, slid the papers forward. "We'll just go page by page," he said gently. "No rush." I nodded. "Thank you for being patient with me." He winced. "Just a flicker." Then I turned to page 3. "Ryan," I said, tapping the paper. "What's this part about selling the land?" He froze. That's just future planning," he said quickly. "Nothing immediate." I looked up at him. Really looked. "Are you planning my future?" I asked. "Or yours?" His mouth opened, closed. Outside, the wind picked up, rustling the fields like a warning. And as Ryan reached for the pen to answer me, he had no idea the very next phone call would change which one of us was actually in control. I made sure the neighbor saw me pull out. Made sure the cashier at the hardware store remembered my face. Made sure someone, somewhere, could say later, "No, that woman didn't seem confused at all." Then I went somewhere else. The bank. The young teller smiled too wide when I stepped up. "How can I help you today, Mrs. Carter?" "I need to check on a safe deposit box," I said. She typed. Frowned. Typed again. "I don't see one under your name." "That's because it's under my husband's," I said. "Frank Carter." She hesitated. "He passed?" 8 years ago, I said. But he was thorough. That made her smile fade just a bit. She called the manager. 10 minutes later, I was sitting in a small, quiet room with a metal box on the table. The same box Frank insisted on opening with me every 2 years, like a ritual, like practice. My hands didn't shake when I unlocked it. Inside were the originals, not copies, not scans. The deed, the trust, the clause they didn't know about. In the event of cognitive dispute, ownership remains with the original grantor unless evaluated by an independent trustee selected by the grantor. Independent. Trustee. Selected by me. I smiled. At 4:45 p.m., Ryan's car pulled into the driveway. I was already sitting at the table, laptop open, papers printed and stacked neatly. I made sure the font was big. The room smelled like fresh bread. Comfort is disarming. "Hey, Mom," he said, stepping inside. He looked around like he expected something to jump out at him. "I printed the forms," I said, "so I could see them better." He relaxed. "Good idea." He sat across from me, took out a pen, slid the papers forward. "We'll just go page by page," he said gently. "No rush." I nodded. "Thank you for being patient with me." He winced. Just a flicker. Then I turned to page 3. "Ryan," I said, tapping the paper. "What's this part about selling the land?" He froze. That's just future planning," he said quickly. "Nothing immediate." I looked up at him. Really looked. "Are you planning my future?" I asked. "Or yours?" His mouth opened, closed. Outside, the wind picked up, rustling the fields like a warning. And as Ryan reached for the pen to answer me, he had no idea the very next phone call would change which one of us was actually in control. Ryan didn't answer my question right away. He picked up the pen, rolled it between his fingers, then set it down again like it was suddenly heavier than it looked. I watched that little movement closely. When someone can't hold a pen steady, it's usually because they know the ink won't stay where they want it to. "Mom," he said finally, "you're reading too much into it." I nodded. "That happens sometimes." He flinched, just barely. I pushed the papers back toward him. "Why don't you explain it to me again?" I said. Slowly. Ryan took a breath. "The land is maintenance, heavy, taxes, insurance. If something happened to you, it would be easier if we already had authority." Authority. That word again. Everyone wants it. Few earn it. "And if nothing happens to me?" I asked. "Well," he said, forcing a smile, "this way we're prepared. Prepared to sell, prepared to move on, prepared to erase." I leaned back in my chair. The wood creaked the same way it always had. "Do you remember when you were 10? I asked casually. "And you tried to sell my wedding ring at a yard sale?" He blinked. "What?" "You said you were preparing for college," I went on. "You thought because it was old, it didn't matter." "That's not the same thing," he said quickly. "No," I agreed. "This is bigger." Silence stretched between us. Outside, the wind pressed against the windows like it wanted in. Ryan rubbed his face. "Melissa's just worried," he said. "She thinks you're slipping." "Do you?" I asked. He hesitated. Too long. "I think," he said carefully, "that you're tired." I smiled. "I've been tired before." I stood up slowly and walked to the sink, poured myself a glass of water. My hands were steady. I made sure he saw that. "Ryan," I said, my back still to him, "if I told you I already took care of things, would you believe me?" He laughed, a nervous sound. "Mom, I mean it," I said, turning around. "If I told you the land wasn't something you needed to worry about anymore?" He stared at me. "What do you mean?" I took a sip of water. "I mean, your signatures won't change anything." His jaw tightened. "Did you sign something already?" "No," I said. "Frank did." That landed. Ryan straightened. "Dad's been gone for years." "Yes," I said. "But he planned further ahead than you give him credit for." He stood up now. "Mom, if there's paperwork, Melissa needs to see it." "Does she?" I asked. "Or does she just need control?" His voice rose. "Why are you being like this?" I set the glass down. "Because you walked into my house with papers that treat me like a liability." He looked away. "There's a reason," I continued. "Your father never put this land in your names. He loved you, but he wasn't blind." Ryan laughed, sharp and bitter. "So what, there's some secret clause? Some magic paper that saves everything?" I reached into my cardigan pocket and felt the key. Cold. Solid. "There's a box," I said. "At the bank." He went still. "And there's a trustee," I added. "One neither of you chose." "That's not fair," he snapped. I met his eyes. "Neither is calling your mother confused so you can sell her home." His shoulders sagged then. Just a little. The anger drained, leaving something uglier underneath. "Melissa won't like this," he said quietly. "I know," I replied. "She doesn't like losing." He grabbed the papers and shoved them back into his bag. "We'll talk later," he muttered. "When you're calmer." Calmer? He left without saying goodbye. I watched his car disappear down the driveway, dust rising behind it like the end of something. That night, Melissa didn't call. Instead, she texted, "You embarrassed Ryan today. We're just trying to protect you. Please don't make this harder than it needs to be." I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed back, "Come by tomorrow morning. Bring whatever papers you want. There's something I need to show you." She replied almost instantly. Finally. Thank you, Mom. I turned off my phone. Upstairs, I opened the recipe book again and slid out the documents Frank and I had hidden years ago. I spread them across the bed like test answers before finals. Tomorrow wasn't about confusion. Tomorrow was about proof. Because by this time tomorrow, Melissa would finally understand why Frank always said, "Never underestimate a woman who knows where the originals are." Melissa arrived at 9:02 a.m. Not 9. Not 9:05. Melissa has always liked being precise, just late enough to feel in control. Her SUV rolled into the driveway like it belonged there already. She stepped out wearing heels she never wore on the farm, sunglasses too big for her face, and that tight little smile she uses when she thinks she's about to win. I was waiting at the kitchen table, not pacing, not fidgeting, just sitting. That alone made her hesitate. "Morning, Mom," she said, kissing the air near my cheek. "You look good today." I nodded. "So do you." She glanced around the kitchen like she was inventorying it. Cabinets, counters, the window facing the fields. I could almost hear the numbers ticking behind her eyes. Ryan wasn't with her. Interesting. She sat across from me and set her folder on the table. Thick this time. More confident. More aggressive. "I brought updated forms," she said brightly. "Cleaner language. Easier for you." "For me?" I repeated. "Yes," she said, missing the edge in my voice. "We just want everything to be simple. Simple is what people say when they don't want questions." I folded my hands. "Before we start," I said, "I need to ask you something." She smiled. "Of course. When did you decide I couldn't be trusted anymore?" Her smile flickered. Just a hairline crack. "Mom." "No," I said. "Answer the question." She sighed, like I was exhausting her. "It wasn't one moment. It was gradual." "Gradual like the time you moved my checkbook?" I asked. "Or gradual like the time you told the neighbor I was having memory issues?" Her jaw tightened. "You were forgetting things." "Name one," I said. She opened her mouth, closed it. I leaned forward. "One real thing, Melissa," she scoffed. "This is exactly what I mean. You're getting defensive." There it was. The pivot. When facts fail, flip the emotion switch. I stood up. "Let's go for a drive," I said. Her eyes widened. "What?" "I want to show you something." "You shouldn't be driving," she said quickly. "You said yourself." "I said I didn't trust myself with buttons," I corrected. "Not with roads." She hesitated. "We can talk here." "No," I said, already grabbing my keys. "This matters." She followed me out, clearly annoyed but curious enough not to refuse. Control hates unanswered questions. We drove in silence, past the barn, past the north field, toward town, toward the bank. When I pulled into the parking lot, Melissa finally spoke. "Why are we here?" I shut off the engine. "Because you've been very busy managing my life without checking one thing." "And what's that?" she asked. I looked at her. "Whether you were actually allowed to." Inside, the manager recognized me immediately. Funny what happens when you've lived somewhere your whole life. "Mrs. Carter," she said warmly. "Back again?" Melissa froze. "Again?" she asked. The manager smiled politely. "Yes, yesterday." I didn't look at my daughter as her confidence drained right out of her posture. We were led to the private room. The metal box sat waiting on the table like it had been expecting us. I opened it. Melissa leaned forward, eyes sharp, scanning. Then she stopped breathing. That's the deed," she whispered. "And the trust," I said. "And the amendment." Her hands shook as she reached for the papers. "This isn't valid," she said quickly. "Ryan would have known." "Ryan didn't," I said. "And neither did you. Because Frank didn't want you to." She looked up at me. Real fear now. You hid this. No, I said. I protected it. She flipped pages faster. Faster. This trustee, who is this? I smiled for the first time that morning. You'll find out soon. Her voice cracked. Mom, why are you doing this? I closed the box, locked it, took the key back. Because, I said quietly, you mistook my patience for permission. We walked out without another word. Back in the car, Melissa stared straight ahead. The farm looked different now. Smaller, further away, as if it were slipping from her hands. And as we turned back onto the road, my phone buzzed with a call from a number Melissa had never seen because the trustee was finally ready to step in. I didn't answer the call right away. I let the phone buzz between us, vibrating against the cup holder like a third heartbeat in the car. Melissa's eyes flicked to it, then to me, then back again. She didn't ask who it was. She already knew it wasn't one of hers. Are you going to get that? She asked, trying to sound casual. In a minute, I said. The phone stopped. Silence rushed in to fill the space. Melissa laughed, sharp and brittle. So this is it, huh? Some mystery savior swoops in and tells us we're the bad guys? I pulled onto the gravel shoulder and put the car in park. You don't need a savior, I said. You need accountability. She turned toward me, eyes blazing. We sacrificed for you. You benefited from me, I corrected. There's a difference. My phone buzzed again. Same number. This time, I answered. Mrs. Carter, a calm male voice said. Older, steady, the kind of voice that doesn't waste words. This is Daniel Whitmore. Melissa's breath hitched. I was expecting your call, I said. I figured, he replied. I just reviewed the file you sent over last night. We need to talk in person. When? I asked. Today, he said. If possible. Melissa leaned closer, her voice suddenly sweet. Hi, this is her daughter. Melissa, maybe we should schedule something more formal. Daniel cut in, polite but unmoved. I'm only authorized to speak with Mrs. Carter. The line went quiet. I felt it then. The shift. Power doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it just changes chairs. 2:00 work, I asked. Perfect, Daniel said. My office. I hung up. Melissa stared at me like she was seeing a stranger. You went behind our backs. I met her gaze. You went around my mind. That trust, she said quickly. It can be contested. Everything can be contested, I replied. Winning is another story. She shook her head. Ryan won't go for this. I smiled. Ryan already knows something's wrong. He just hasn't admitted it out loud yet. We drove home in silence. When we pulled into the driveway, Ryan's car was already there. He was sitting on the porch steps, elbows on his knees, staring at the dirt like it might answer him if he waited long enough. Melissa stiffened. What's he doing here? Waiting? I said. Like you should have been doing years ago. Ryan stood when we got out. His eyes went straight to Melissa. Not me. You didn't tell me, he said. She snapped back. Because there was nothing to tell. There was a trust, he said. A real one. With amendments, she scoffed. You believe her now? Ryan turned to me. Is it true? I nodded once. Yes, he swallowed. And you knew? I knew enough, I said. And when I needed to know more, I asked the right person. Melissa laughed again, louder this time. So what, Mom? You think this makes you untouchable? I stepped past her and unlocked the door. I think it makes me heard. Inside, the house felt steadier, like it approved. Ryan followed me into the kitchen. Melissa lingered in the doorway, arms crossed, calculating. I saw the bank statements, Ryan said quietly. The ones you didn't want me to see. Melissa snapped. Those were temporary transfers. They were from Mom's account, he said. Into yours. She looked at him, incredulous. I was managing things. You were draining her, he said. The words hung between them, heavy and irreversible. Melissa's face hardened. You're choosing her. Ryan didn't hesitate. I'm choosing the truth. That's when she turned on me. You planned this, she said, voice shaking with fury. You played us. I shook my head. No. I listened. You told me exactly who you were. She grabbed her bag. This isn't over. I know, I said. That's why the trustee's coming. Her eyes widened. Coming? I checked the clock. Soon. Melissa stormed out, heels striking the floor like punctuation marks. The door slammed so hard the windows rattled. Ryan sank into a chair, hands over his face. I'm sorry, he said. I should have seen it. I put my hand on his shoulder. You're seeing it now. Outside, tires spun on gravel. And as Melissa's car disappeared down the road, I realized the next time she came back, it wouldn't be to argue, it would be to defend herself. Daniel Whitmore arrived exactly at 1:58 p.m. Not early, not late. Men like him understand the power of timing. He stepped out of a dark gray sedan, jacket folded over one arm, tie already loosened like he planned to stay a while. He looked around the property first, not the house, but the land, the fields, the barn, the fence line Frank rebuilt twice because he hated shortcuts. That told me everything I needed to know. Ryan stood beside me on the porch, shoulders tense. That's him? He asked quietly. That's him, I said. Daniel walked up the steps and offered his hand. Mrs. Carter. Mr. Whitmore. He shook Ryan's hand next. Firm. Measured. You must be the son. Ryan nodded. Yes, sir. Daniel looked him straight in the eye. This is a hard day for sons. Ryan swallowed. Inside, we sat at the dining table again. Same table. Different balance of power. Daniel laid out the documents neatly, like he was setting pieces on a chessboard. I'll be direct, he said. The trust is airtight. It was designed to be. Ryan leaned forward. So, my sister can't sell the land? Daniel glanced at him. Your sister doesn't have authority to sell a lawn chair on this property. Ryan exhaled. Hard. And the power of attorney forms? Ryan asked. Daniel smiled thinly. Worthless. Especially given the circumstances. I watched Ryan's hands clench. What circumstances? Daniel slid one document across the table. The attempted guardianship request. Filed without medical confirmation. That's a problem. Another paper followed. Unauthorized fund transfers. Also a problem. Then he looked at me. And the allegation of cognitive decline while Mrs. Carter was actively managing accounts and driving independently? He shook his head. That's not concern. That's strategy. Ryan sat back, stunned. What happens now? Daniel folded his hands. Now, Mrs. Carter decides. They both looked at me. Funny thing about that moment, I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt steady. I don't want revenge, I said. I want peace. Daniel nodded. Those aren't the same thing. No, I agreed. But one lasts longer. Ryan cleared his throat. Melissa's going to fight this. Daniel didn't blink. She can try. At 3 p.m., my phone buzzed. Melissa. I let it ring. Then again. Then a text. You think bringing in a stranger fixes this? You're destroying our family. Ryan flinched. Mom. I picked up my phone and typed slowly. You destroyed it when you decided I was disposable. I hit send. Daniel stood. I'll file protective measures immediately. Temporary injunction. Asset freeze on disputed accounts. Ryan looked overwhelmed. This is a lot. It's accountability, Daniel said. It usually feels like that at first. When he left, the house fell quiet again. Not the tense quiet from before, but the kind that settles after a storm passes. Ryan stayed seated long after. She used to be different, he said softly. Melissa. So did you, I replied. People change. Choices speed it up. He nodded. What do you want me to do? I thought for a moment. Stay. Help around the place. Listen more than you speak. He nodded again. Okay. That evening, the phone rang once more. Unknown number. I answered. Mrs. Carter, a woman's voice said. Calm. Official. This is Adult Protective Services. We've received a report and need to schedule a follow-up visit. Ryan stiffened. I smiled. Of course, I said. When would you like to come? Tomorrow morning, she said. Perfect, I replied. I hung up and looked at Ryan. She called them, he said. Yes, I said. And now they'll hear everything. Outside, the sun dipped low, turning the fields gold. Frank would have liked that light. He always said it meant truth was close. I stood and went to the window. Melissa thought she was escalating. What she didn't realize was that she'd just invited the last witness she could afford to ignore. Rehook. Because tomorrow, when Adult Protective Services walked through my door, they wouldn't be evaluating my mind, they'd be documenting my daughter's intentions. Adult Protective Services arrived at 9:11 a.m. Not with sirens, not with attitude. Just a white sedan, a calm woman in her 40s, and a man carrying a tablet instead of assumptions. Mrs. Carter? The woman asked. That's me, I said, steady. Her name was Karen. She shook my hand, then Ryan's. Her partner, Luis, nodded politely and took in the room with practiced eyes, the walls, the table, the paperwork stacked neatly beside the fruit bowl. Order matters. Chaos tells stories people don't want told. We received a concern about potential elder neglect and financial exploitation, Karen said gently. We're here to assess, not accuse. I smiled. Then you're exactly where you need to be. We sat at the table. Again. That table had seen more truth in the last 48 hours than it had in years. Karen asked questions first. Open-ended. Respectful. The kind that invite honesty instead of fear. How long have you lived here, Mrs. Carter? 42 years, I said. Long enough to know when someone's trying to hurry me out of my own life. Louise typed without looking up. Karen asked about my health, my finances, my daily routine. I answered clearly, completely. No pauses, no confusion. Then she asked, do you feel pressure from your children to make decisions you don't agree with? Ryan's shoulders stiffened. Yes, I said. I do. Karen nodded. Can you explain? So I did. I talked about the phone calls, the paperwork, the social worker visit framed as concern, the attempt to move funds, the language episodes, safety, burden used like tools instead of care. I slid Daniel's documents across the table. Karen's expression changed as she read. Not shocked, focused. This trust, she said, was established years ago. Yes, I replied, before anyone decided I was inconvenient. Louise looked up. Mrs. Carter, did anyone ever explain to you why these financial changes were being made? No, I said. They explained why I shouldn't ask. Silence settled. Then the front door opened. Melissa walked in like she still owned the air. I'm here, she said sharply. I was told there'd be another evaluation. Karen stood. And you are? Her daughter, Melissa said. The one actually looking out for her. Karen gestured to the chair. Please, sit. Melissa didn't. She crossed her arms. This is ridiculous. My mother's manipulating everyone. Karen didn't rise to it. Mrs. Carter has been very consistent. Because she's rehearsed, Melissa snapped. She forgets things. I turned to her. Like how you moved money without asking? Her face went pale. Karen's voice stayed calm. Mrs. Carter? Is that true? Yes, I said. We have records. Luis tapped his tablet. We've confirmed irregular transfers. Melissa laughed, high and brittle. I was managing her finances. Without authorization, Karen said. Ryan finally spoke. She told me it was temporary. Melissa spun on him. You're supposed to be on my side. I'm on Mom's side, he said quietly. That was it. The moment. Melissa's composure cracked. You don't understand what it's like, she said, voice rising. Watching her get old. Watching everything slip. Karen met her eyes. What I see is a capable woman whose autonomy was challenged, Luis added. And intent matters. Melissa shook her head. You're all wrong. Karen closed her folder. Based on what we've observed, we're opening a formal investigation into financial exploitation. Melissa's breath caught. This doesn't mean charges, Karen continued, but it does mean boundaries. She turned to me. Mrs. Carter, do you feel safe remaining in your home? Yes, I said. More than ever, Karen nodded. Then that's our recommendation. Melissa backed toward the door. This isn't over. I looked at her. It is for me. She left without another word. The house exhaled. Ryan sat down heavily. I didn't know it would go this far. It went that far the moment she decided I didn't count, I said. Karen stood. We'll be in touch. After they left, I walked to the window. The fields were green and wide and patient. Frank was right. Land remembers. And as the dust settled, I realized the next call wouldn't come from my daughter. It would come from someone asking whether I wanted to press charges. The call came 3 days later. I was in the garden, hands buried in dirt, pulling weeds that had been choking the rosemary. Funny how problems look smaller when you're dealing with something honest roots, soil, sunlight. My phone buzzed on the porch rail, and I knew before I looked that this one mattered. Mrs. Carter, the voice said when I answered. Calm. Official. This is Detective Harris with the County Fraud Unit. We've reviewed the findings from Adult Protective Services. I closed my eyes. Yes, I said. We have enough to proceed, he continued. But before we do, we need to know how you want to move forward. There it was. The moment everyone thinks they want until it actually arrives. I'd like to meet, I said. In person. That afternoon, Ryan drove me into town. He didn't say much. He didn't need to. Guilt sits louder than words. Melissa wasn't there when I met with the detective. Just files, statements, numbers written in ink that doesn't care about family ties. Financial exploitation, Detective Harris said. Coercive control. Attempted guardianship under false pretenses. I listened. I asked question. Teacher bid I hard. And if I don't press charges? I asked. He leaned back. Then we document everything and move forward civilly. The trust stays protected. Your autonomy stays intact. I nodded. When I got home, the house felt different again. Not lighter, this time stronger. Like it knew it had passed a test. Ryan followed me inside. He stood awkwardly by the door like he was 13 again, waiting to be told whether he was grounded. What did you decide? He asked. I set my purse down. I'm not pressing charges. Hey, exhale it hard. Thank you. But, I added, that doesn't mean nothing changes. He looked at me. I understand. I studied my son, the man he'd become, the boy he used to be, both standing there, unsure which one deserved forgiveness. You can stay, I said. Help with the land. Earn your way back. But I won't be managed, and I won't be rushed. He nodded. Okay. Melissa called that night. I let it go to voicemail. Her message was short, tight, controlled. You won, she said. I hope it was worth it. I deleted it. Because here's the truth nobody talks about. This was never about winning. It was about being seen. Weeks passed. Then, months. The investigation wrapped quietly. The accounts were restored. The trust held firm. Melissa moved farther away, not just in miles, but in voice, in presence. Some distance heals, some distance protect. On a Saturday morning in early fall, Ryan left a single dandelion on the kitchen table before heading back to his place in town. I held it between my fingers for a long time. Old habits. New meanings. At 70 years old, I wasn't confused. I wasn't fragile. I wasn't done. I was a woman who finally understood that love doesn't mean surrender and family doesn't get to rewrite your life just because they're tired of waiting. That night, I locked the door. Not out of fear, but out of ownership. The land was quiet. The house breathed easy. And for the first time in a long time, so did I.